Okay, hi everyone. So this discussion is going to focus on the tech part of how Solar-Plexus itself can be utilized to be used in the communication protocols which is performed by a handheld device. And this is basically uh, some of the texts and the text we are going to talk about in terms of the historical data set, and at the same point of time how uh, EMF also is part of how much electrical stimulus should be given to the neurons for the activation at any given point of time in terms of healthcare. Now, when we're trying to understand the depolarizing batteries and what kind of supply or the circuit arrangement should be deployed, this relates to H02J7 slash 0034, and this is particularly supplying load in terms the load is taken from the batteries with safety protocols in place. Safety and protocol, I would say safety and the protection based handheld devices using reverse polarity correction or protecting circuits. Now, when we are working around with the solar plexus in terms of reality and working on a candidate who is suffering or is undergoing treatment to obviate some kind of ailment, so let's deep dive into that. Electronic devices itself, so any kind of electrical stuff that is uh, tagged under electronic devices, that is G02C11 slash 10. Magnetic therapy plays a very vital role because the biochemistry of the candidates, in most of the cases, there is sodium calcium pump. And the understanding of sodium calcium pump and the way the message itself is transferred to the neurons, it plays a pivotal role not only designing the biochemical pathways, however, that can be replicated in nanotech, it can be replicated in the others. There's a lot of stuff which has been developed, and because there's so much of scientific data around the same, the cost of the deployment of such devices to treat the ailment is at a higher cost, so it is considered under the luxury category. Now, understanding the magnetic part of the engagement, that is under H01R13 slash 6205, which includes two-part coupling devices which are held in engagement with a magnet. Then, if we are talking about regulation of charging current or voltage, that is H02J7 slash 04. Now, bypassing of signals, that is B3 slash 56. Something which is very important in terms of insulated gate electrodes. Example, IGFET or IGBT using the FETs for protective elements. Here we have integrated devices which has arrangement for electrical or thermal protection. Example, protection circuits against electrostatic discharge, that is ESD for devices. We already talked about in terms of the insulated gate. Then we have overcharge protection. How the overcharge protection can be mitigated or understood is by H02J7 slash 003 slash 02. Over discharge protection, that is H02J7 slash 00306. When we are using DC power distribution, that is H04B 2203 slash 547. Then we have H04B3 548, that is system for transmission via power distribution line, the power on the line being direct current. Okay, now let's understand how this is being utilized. What are the problem statements? I think I won't get into this because there's nothing but simple things put into practice. I'll take up something else. I want to touch base on anesthesia, but not today. Perhaps I'll talk about anesthesia maybe some other day. Let's look into this one. Okay, so this is basically the stimulation of TENS. TENS here is TENS. That stands for transcutaneous electrical nerve stimulation. So it is specially adapted for the TENS. That is A61N1 slash 0456. So pain is felt because of so many reasons, and it can be a damage also. Can that be mitigated? That has to be discussed in a, because a lot of historical data sets needs to be looked into when one needs to treat the pain. So here we are just looking into the understanding of the technological landscape of what has been done, and it's a very very small data set which can be utilized for the small language models. There's big data set around the same, but when we are trying to understand the data, we need to understand uh, what's the region of the body and which can be treated, and not only the stimulation of the muscle in the local region where the pain is felt, uh, but the stimulating muscle close to the nerve of passage, that is a region that is superior to the cranial or upstream towards the spinal column. I always think, so this is not part of the topic, but I always think that if I would have taken medical as a profession, I would have mastered in the neural aspect of the nervous system, because I think that triggers me a lot in terms of the understanding, and particularly from the standpoint view of folks who are utilizing internet and they are logged on to this portal for a longer period of time. It has impact, and the impact is bad, it is sad, and that has to be mitigated, and the stakeholders need to understand that, because not everybody is able to come out of the portal. However, okay, we have a Q&A question. Okay, I'll try this. Start the Q&A. Good sense of direction. Okay, if I have to answer this question, good sense of direction. Good sense of direction would be to understand and work upon the solar plexus, because that's a better terminology as compared to what folks are talking about in terms of conscious mind and subconscious mind. Honestly speaking, subconscious word itself, when we just take the prefix sub, it means subtraction, that means minus. And rather than the subconscious word, the better word would be solar plexus any day, because scientifically, the activation of the solar plexus, which is like the core, which enables you to connect to a power which is not studied properly, but it has been felt by numerous folks over the historical data set. However, because we are in industry 4.0, things are a little different right now. So that's how I would like to answer this question. Next, we were talking about the TENS, that is transcutaneous electrical nerve stimulation. The next is external stimulation with patch electrodes for the treatment of pain. For the treatment of pain, there's a lot of research or activities done in terms of cold therapy, hot therapy. So cold therapy works, it works wonders. I somehow got to work on a gamut of technology in terms of EMF way back. Okay, this is way back. And I did work around 20 to 25 technologies around EMF. So I understand that very well in terms of research, and somehow I deployed it in my own life, and some kind of ailment was there in terms of the pain. Uh, had been going through. Next, this external stimulator is A61N1 slash 36021, pain A6191 slash 3671. We talked about the patch electrodes and stuff. So, okay, let's see. Are they talking about herds or something? Mm, so we talked about the classification. I think that's good enough right now. Let me look into something else which is interesting. Let me look into this from the AI perspective. So although AI is called artificial intelligence, folks have no clue that artificial intelligence, the very simple understanding of artificial intelligence is when the same problem statement is given to folks. How are they solving it? So it's like a collective reality of this. I would rather go with the small language models. I really don't want to get with the large language models because that is synthetic data, and that data is not going to resolve the issues which are discovered in silos. Okay, so what do we have here? Patients. Okay, I always have been focusing on multiple parameters, and here what we are focusing again is multiple parameters. Generally, you will see the word either it's written multiple or it's written a polarity of. That's a um, legal language which we like to utilize when we are trying to give it a proper periphery data set in terms of understanding the parameters. More the parameters, merrier in terms of um, the input data. So for a good problem solution approach, you need to have a lot of input data and the right input data with different parameters. So here we are going to talk about assessment of data from multiple sources in a healthcare facility. This has been ongoing discussion for the longest time. I think for the last 25 years, a lot of work has been done. Still, we are just scratching the surface in terms of what that data can be utilized as, because in many ways, because of the control environment, that data, because of the privacy reasons, cannot be shared. Okay, let's look into the classification because that's the fantastic part. At least from the classification point of view, you have a little bit more cognizance of the healthcare parameters in terms of what is important in a facility which is actually looking into the healthcare. Okay, for the medical diagnosis, ICT is looking into the medical simulation or medical data mining. Um, for detecting, monitoring, modeling epidemics, pandemics, evaluating the health index for individual health risk assessment. Then we have measuring temperature of body parts, sensing for the inflamed tissue, that is A61B5/01. Um, Local tracking of the ailments in a hospital or a private home, that is A61B5/1113. Um, so devices which are utilized for uh, lifting the candidate which is undergoing some kind of treatment, particularly when there is an bed. So you have a lot of innovation around the bed which is utilized for treating the ailment. So bed specially adapted for nursing, that is A61G7/00. Okay, this is done. How are we looking at it? Okay, I think this is interesting. I'll just go through this, and then probably, if time permits, we will discuss one more topic, which would be part of the solar plexus. And solar plexus is a better term rather than using the word subconscious. At least that is what my research capabilities talk about. Okay, so with the utilization of modules and submodules. So module, the word particularly module is the larger landscape. It's, you can take it as the basic rule of playing that particular periphery or that particular game. So game here is not that it's a fun, fun element, but game is basically the word game is being used here in a paraphrasing stuff, whereby we are saying game is, you put yourself in that situation and then that imagination happens as to how you want to uh, develop the periphery. So that is very important. Okay, here what we are doing here is we have a score. So the score can be early signal score, which is related to understanding the candidate, and it could be now the score itself can be subdivided, color coded, and particularly the selection based process would be um, what is the evaluation every time a new data is arriving, because even these devices which we are wearing, these handheld devices, they are taking up parameters. Say for example, I will go to, I'm not getting into blood oxygen right now. Okay, ECG we can see afterwards. I just want you to see something else. Okay, heart rate. So 2 minutes ago, which was a static heart rate, it was, the BPM was 103. Now it is 104. Let's see. So many a times I'm able to take it quite low, and many a times I'm able to take it at a higher level, because that is how I have trained my solar plexus to react to certain situations. And now this comes with a lot of practice, so don't put yourself into such kind of situations. It's not a advisable situation perhaps, but on average I dabble between, what I have noted is somewhere between, it's right now it's 100 plus. I just had a caffeine kick, so it has to be high. Okay, anyhow, let's understand here the evaluation process every time there's a new data arrival. The system, the overall architecture is pushing the alert to the caregiver. So here we call the doctors, the medical doctors perhaps, caregivers or trigger devices automatically uh, turning on when the score increases a threshold level. So there is an analytical module which is selecting the data of the candidate, which is data input. Then we have okay, push notification seems to be simple. So dashboard is something which should be legible enough, it should be clean, and particularly if you go by the research work done by scientists globally, you will be able to appreciate that tile way of UI works. It's easy for the observation skills, because that's how folks have learned it over the years. So any new learning that has to go through a different phase altogether. So we discussed this. Okay, let's look into this. Okay, let's see. So I'll discuss one more discussion around this in terms of uh, the tagging part. Okay, should I get into lymphocytes today? I think that will be too technical today. Okay, let's do this because I think this needs attention. A lot of work is being done. This like magnetic stimulators used to treat migraine, sinus, headache, and the other related ailments. So first we'll talk about the understanding of. Okay, it's a very interesting diagram. Okay, so the device is actually held here. That's how the device works. And then we have the nervous part. So I'll be walking you through this. I'm just looking at the diagrams. Okay, so basically the device is held here, and this is a nerve stimulation device, which includes an impulse generator having a control unit and a power source. So simple, sweet, straightforward. Now, what is happening here is the impulse generator. What is it doing? Current time. Okay. Okay, let's see. So it's external stimulator. So the impulse generator is under the understanding of patch electrodes A61N1/361-4. External stimulators, then we have patch electrodes for the treatment of pain. That is A61N1/36021. But I feel a German way of working is a little bit different because they're utilizing it at a different frequency hertz, and I have been using that for a while. So that is why German technology has a lot of historical data set in terms of they use the mechanical understanding into the electronics. They use the electronic understanding into the mechanical part, which is quite fascinating from the standpoint view of solving problems. Then magnetotherapy in combination with another treatment, that is A61N2/002. This is there. Okay. So I talked about the electrical impulse. I'm seeing if something interesting has been disclosed. So it's not invasive. So any device which is utilized on the candidate at the outer periphery, it's not invasive. It's just there is the signal is passed with the touch, and that is one reason. Not everything which is invasive is good enough because a lot of other parameters kick in, because when you are doing invasive you have to look into the other parameters also. But at the periphery, when there's no cut involved, the treatment of that particular ailment is different. So I talk about TENS. So yes, they also mentioned invasive procedures includes minimally invasive procedures where do not involve inserting a substance device into or through the skin into an internal body cavity beyond the body orifice. The orifice word, I mean, this is something very close to me. One of my first applications which I've written was a toothbrush, an electronic toothbrush, and there we utilize the word orifice, we utilize the word contouring, and that's how those words actually became part of me over the years in terms of whenever I'm trying to utilize a word instead of hole, use the word orifice, contour, and particularly the word contouring is very evident in the luxury section because back for one of the industrial design work which I had performed or commissioned to me was we could change the stone of the crown, and because we were able to change the stone of the crown, there's a lot of technique and a lot of tech involved in just creating the crown of that ring at the first place. So, and then utilize the word contouring, and those days things are very different. A lot of research work had to undergo just to get through the whole process. Okay, we are good for now. Thank you for watching this out. If you have any questions, you can always send us a DM and we can work around it. We have a couple of ongoing, I would say, inquiries around the healthcare sector. Let's see how we can work together on that aspect. Thank you for watching this out. Have a great, great, great week ahead.